That's fine, I'll go it alone. Just like Meghan Markle and Prince Harry.
Ryan, this is a terrible idea. We could change the course of history. You always say that, but doesn't history pretty much suck? I mean, the Crusades, Hitler, Prince Harry marrying Meghan Markle. Again? Oh, like all of your wives are so much better.
Sir, your millions from Netflix for no one knows what.
Put it with the rest of them.
Oh, Harry, I just found out you had a son. Congratulations, old man.
Daughter, but thank you.
Son, and you didn't just find out.
Babe, time to do our daily $250,000 sponsored Instagram post for Del Taco.
I knew it was a boy. I just forgot.
Please, just let me be annoyed.
I shouldn't have left the made-up nonsense.
There are some things you just don't expect to leak, but when it comes to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, that rule rarely applies. The podcast flops, the jam jokes, the awkward product rollouts, the stone-cold silence from former friends, and now this, a Family Guy scene so brutal, so targeted, that it reportedly never even made it past the studio's final screening, yet somehow it still slipped out. And once you hear what they tried to get away with, you'll understand why it was yanked at the last second. Insiders close to the production claim the scene was fully scripted, voiced, and animated. It was ready, locked in, and then someone high up decided it couldn't air. Not because it wasn't funny, not because it didn't land, but because it was too real, too sharp, and far too risky for primetime. Here's what allegedly went down.
Generously offered to keep the wax figures of Harry and Meghan safe.
Yeah, that's correct. I would just like to say that I'm definitely not using the wax figures for sex stuff.
What did he say?
The scene takes place at a cartoon version of a Hollywood garden party. Think sun-soaked lawns, clinking glasses, floppy hats, and overly polite chatter. Meghan is floating around the crowd, glowing with that slightly too intense grin, talking about the launch of her brand new wine, the infamous As Ever Rosé, the one already mocked online for being overpriced, private labeled, and pushed like it was changing lives.
So you hate journalists? That's right. And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist.
She's pitching it hard. Guests are sipping and smiling with frozen expressions. One of them calls it empowering. Another says it tastes like feminine resilience. Everyone pretends to be thrilled. Everyone but Harry. He stands behind her, shoulders hunched, glass full. Then in one slow motion, he pours the entire thing into a nearby potted plant. He forces a smile and says, "Delicious, darling." And that's when it hits. From behind a bush, Stewie watches the entire thing unfold and mutters, "Even the plants need therapy."
Meghan and Harry's son Archie, he's gonna grow up and be like, let me get this straight. We used to be in the royal family? Like I could have been a king and now I'm working at Burger King? Is that what you said?
The camera cuts to the fern. It is shriveled, twitching, practically gasping for air. That was the joke. The writers, according to one source, thought it was genius. They pitched it as the moment the audience would scream. Apparently it crushed at the internal table read. People were howling. It was mean, yes, but they thought it was timely, sharp, cultural gold. But when the rough cut started making the rounds, things shifted. Executives at Fox allegedly got nervous. Legal flagged it. There were whispers that the Sussex camp had already made contact. Others say Fox made the call themselves, worried that the backlash would drown out the comedy entirely. Whatever the reason, the sketch was pulled, quietly and fast.
If she didn't marry him, she would be on The Bachelor this season. She would be Meghan M. from Sherman Oaks barista. She's just got lucky.
But not before it slipped out. Now it's everywhere. Screenshots, fan animations, leaked audio synced with lip readings on TikTok. The clip may not have aired on television, but the internet has already turned it into legend. And Harry and Meghan? They're nowhere in sight. This wasn't a parody, it was a takedown. And that fake glass of wine was only the beginning. Because what happened next proves something even harsher.
She comes from an unconventional family. Yes, very different family.
I was like, yeah, man, she does. Just like Harry.
The world is not just laughing at the Sussexes. They've moved on. And Meghan's brand is not what it used to be. For anyone thinking the cartoon roast of Meghan and Harry was just a quick jab, think again. This scene was written to sting. Every single frame was layered with meaning. Nothing about it was subtle, and that's exactly why it never aired.
But why don't we have to call Kate Middleton Kate of Wales? Okay, Hilaria, out.
The garden party setting was just the warm-up. According to sources familiar with the production, this particular sketch was storyboarded as a full segment, not a passing gag. A full moment, built to mimic the self-serious brand image Meghan had been trying to craft since stepping back from royal duties. The flowing dresses, the soft-spoken delivery, the curated lifestyle blog energy, it was all there. In the animated scene, Meghan was shown debuting her new wine to a guest list packed with lookalikes of real-life celebrities. One guest resembled Oprah, another looked suspiciously like Ellen. There was even a background extra in a polo shirt, who had viewers speculating it was meant to be James Corden. Each character clinked glasses, raised eyebrows, and forced out compliments like, "Tastes like empowerment," empowerment and so progressive.
We can be the people we talked about being, with no more worries about how we look or the image we project to people. What matters is what we have on the inside.
It was painfully clear what the writers were aiming at. The entire joke built toward the moment where Harry, trapped in the crowd, quietly dumps his rosé into a plant behind him. He delivers the line, "Delicious, darling," with an exhausted look on his face. The timing, the delivery, the forced cheerfulness, it all screamed marital obligation and public image fatigue. Then came the kicker. Stewie peeks around the hedge, deadpan as ever, and watches the liquid seep into the dirt. Without even blinking, he mutters, "Even the plants need therapy." The screen cuts to the fern, which immediately starts wilting, slumping toward the ground like it had just seen something it couldn't unsee. Audience testing reportedly never happened because the sketch didn't make it that far. But internal feedback was already split. Some on the writing team thought it was one of the boldest things they had done in years. Others warned it would be more than controversial. It would be interpreted as personal. And that's the problem.
It has been several months now since our beloved Queen has died. All Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the Prince and his wife.
Because Meghan and Harry are no longer off limits in the way they once were. The Oprah interview may have drawn sympathy. The Netflix series might have earned curiosity. But this sketch, if anything, captured the current cultural tone more accurately than any op-ed ever could. People are not laughing with them anymore, they're laughing at them. And when Family Guy leans in that hard, the writing is usually already on the wall. So why didn't it air? Was it legal? Was it personal? Or was it a strategic pullback to avoid an even bigger explosion? One thing is clear, the joke was never supposed to be seen.
Nutrition is important, so Perkins makes me a bacon sandwich in case Megs has made another one of her rank smoothies.
Wow, Harry, people don't know how tough you got.
And now that it has surfaced, the people behind it may be scrambling to figure out what comes next. Because if you thought this punchline was savage, wait until you hear what happened behind the scenes. What most people don't realize is that the sketch almost made it. The team behind Family Guy reportedly fought tooth and nail to keep it in the final cut. According to two sources familiar with the writer's room dynamic, the writers knew exactly what they were doing. They expected pushback. They even had alternative punchlines ready. But what they didn't expect was total removal. No edits, no softening, just a full-scale deletion ordered by the higher-ups.
Buckingham Palace does not comment on political matters. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye, said Williams. Yes.
At first, they thought it was just another legal check. The joke had already passed through internal approvals, which usually includes a few notes and minor line tweaks. No red flags, no formal objections. But once the rough cut with the full Meghan and Harry garden party scene started circulating among network executives, the mood shifted, fast. One producer reportedly flagged it as too hot to air. That's a phrase most sitcom writers have heard before. It usually means one of two things. Either the network is afraid of advertiser blowback, or the legal team has spotted a potential lawsuit hiding in the punchline. This time it sounded like both. Behind the scenes, whispers began circulating about the Sussex's legal team allegedly reaching out either to Fox or to someone close to the show. Nothing confirmed, nothing in writing, but enough to rattle the corporate cage.
If something terrible happened to William and Kate and the kids, right? The Queen and Charles are very old, they're going to go at some stage, and then you're left with King Andrew. No one wants that.
A single rumor that Meghan's attorneys had already seen the animatic was enough to send everything into freeze mode. That's when the split happened. On one side, the writers and producers. On the other, the network's legal and PR departments. According to a source close to the production, the writers argued that satire is protected. They cited South Park. They referenced earlier Family Guy episodes that roasted politicians, actors, even entire countries. Their point was simple. If they could savage Tom Cruise and still walk away clean, why were Harry and Meghan off limits? But the response wasn't about precedent. It was about timing. A Fox exec allegedly warned that airing the scene now, while Meghan's wine brand was still in launch mode, would be interpreted as a direct attack on her business, not just her image. That kind of blow could potentially open the door to legal complications. Even if the lawsuit never came, the headlines would be brutal. Meghan Markle sues Fox. Meghan Markle sues Family Guy. Meghan Markle takes legal action over cartoon wine joke. That's the kind of PR nightmare advertisers do not want to be dragged into.
And I know some people are disappointed by the name Archie. There's one person who's super excited, the Queen. Yeah, because you know for the last 9 months, she's been like, please don't be Jamal, please don't be Jamal.
And then there was the unspoken layer, the fear that Meghan and Harry might play the victim card again. Accusations of bullying, claims of harassment, racism, sexism. Pick one, pick all. And the sketch would go from funny to radioactive in a matter of hours. So Fox folded. Or as one writer put it, they panicked before the punchline even hit the air. The result? The scene got buried. But even that couldn't stop what was already happening. Because while the network worked overtime to smother the fire, the internet had already struck the match. And once you hear how the public reacted, you'll understand why the writers were right to push for it. There was a time when mocking Meghan Markle would have been a PR disaster. The media walked on eggshells. The public leaned into sympathy. After all, she had just stepped away from the royal family, claimed mistreatment, and wrapped herself in a narrative of survival and self-empowerment. For a while, the world wanted to believe her, but that moment is over, and the savage Family Guy sketch that never aired, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from a very real shift in public sentiment, a turning of the tide, a slow unraveling that's been happening for the past 2 years. One podcast flop, one awkward red carpet, one suspicious brand launch at a time. You can trace it back. Start with the Oprah interview. That was the apex. The Sussexes were everywhere, trending, revered, framed as brave whistleblowers escaping an archaic institution. The world leaned in.
Prince Harry and Meghan, we don't give a f. We don't care about the royal family.
They got a Netflix
show. We never
show.
cared about nothing that had to do with y'all. 1775 was the last time we gave a f.
But then came the Netflix docuseries. Hours of glossy footage, staged monologues, and carefully curated behind-the-scenes peeks. Instead of sparking new sympathy, it left people confused. Weren't they demanding privacy? Why were they selling their story to the highest bidder? Then came the podcast. Archetypes launched with fanfare, but quickly lost steam. Critics called it meandering. Guests seemed more famous than the host, and Meghan's attempts at relatability, like the now infamous story about her being objectified on Deal or No Deal, backfired in spectacular fashion. And then, as if the bubble hadn't deflated enough, came the jam. Yes, the jam. A tiny jar of strawberry preserve sent to influencers with handwritten notes and tied-up string, supposedly as part of Meghan's new lifestyle brand. It was supposed to feel wholesome, personal, elevated, but instead it became the internet's favorite punchline.
One time, I just woke up, I'm in my underwear, I plop down in front of the TV, I turn it on. The moment I turn it on, Prince Harry's talking shit about me.
People mocked the presentation, the name, the tone, even the price. By the time Family Guy took its first swipe, Meghan and Harry weren't media darlings anymore. They were memes, and that's the key. Satire follows power. Comedians aim up, not down. The fact that South Park felt bold enough to air the worldwide privacy tour episode should have been the warning shot. They never said the Sussexes' names directly, but the parody was unmistakable, and it landed hard. Now, with Family Guy circling the same territory, we're seeing something more brutal. Not just jokes about contradiction or hypocrisy, but full-blown character digs. Harry looking hollow, Meghan pushing a rosé like a failed influencer. No wink, no charm, just a blunt caricature of who they've become in the public eye. And here's the kicker.
Back in the day, it used to be like, if you marry my daughter, I'll give you burgundy. Now it's like, my wife actually does a pretty good Timon. You should hear her. Come on, baby, do the thing. Hakuna Matata, do the thing.
The silence coming from Meghan and Harry in response, it isn't making them look above it all. It's making them look flat, disconnected, out of touch, because the audience isn't laughing with them anymore. They're laughing at them, and the couple's refusal to engage or even acknowledge the shift just deepens the sense that they're not in on the joke anymore, which raises a darker question. If even the comedy world has moved on, has the rest of the world already tuned out? When Meghan Markle decided to launch her own rosé under the American Riviera Orchard banner, it wasn't just a business move, it was a branding statement, a calculated swing at lifestyle royalty. The vision was clear.
They're in a loving home, and I treat them better than the museum ever did. They didn't appreciate Meghan's soft hands or Harry's supple lip.
She wanted to be the next Martha, the next Goop, the next tastemaker with a soft focus Instagram filter and an aspirational pantry filled with rose-tinted dreams, but something about it didn't land. Not with the media, not with the public, and definitely not with the comedy writers. The wine launch was supposed to feel personal, elegant, maybe even empowering. But what actually hit the internet was odd. A soft pink bottle, a hard-to-pronounce name, handwritten notes that looked suspiciously AI-generated, and an immediate flood of skepticism. First came the questions. Was the wine actually made by Meghan, or was it a private label job with her name slapped on the front? Wine industry insiders were quick to suggest the latter.
Hey, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
Then came the influencer confusion. Several recipients of the exclusive launch kit posted unboxing videos that felt forced. Their praise sounded polite, not passionate. You could almost hear the discomfort. And then came the memes. People online compared the launch to a bad Etsy project. Others called it desperation in a bottle. Some even joked that the wine was fermented victimhood with notes of palace trauma. It was ruthless, and it spread fast. So when Family Guy storyboarded that now infamous scene, they weren't pulling it out of thin air. They were echoing what was already happening online. The cartoon Meghan handing out her rosé with a brittle smile. The fake party guests repeating buzzwords like feminine and soulful, while clearly hating every sip. It was satire built from real-life cringe, but the most devastating detail wasn't the setting or the dialogue. It was Harry.
I don't think anyone in the world knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box and
It's
loves
so
it.
funny, too, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex.
Animated to look checked out, trapped, and done. His delicious darling line wasn't played for charm, it was played for sadness. And the moment he poured the wine into that poor potted plant, the message couldn't have been clearer. He's not buying it. and neither is anyone else. That's what made the joke hit so hard. It wasn't just about the wine. It was about image control, about selling sincerity, about trying to push a perfectly curated narrative when the public had already moved on. And Family Guy didn't just spoof that failure. They framed it, held it up like a mirror, then shattered it with a single punchline. Even the plants need therapy. No wonder the sketch got pulled. It wasn't just funny, it was too close to the truth. But while Meghan may have escaped the airing of that one joke, the fallout didn't end there. Because what happened inside the Sussex household after the leak, that's when the real drama began.
So let me start with you, sir. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, When?
The sketch never aired, that much is confirmed. But the damage? That didn't wait for broadcast. According to several sources close to Montecito staff, the moment clips from the cut Family Guy scene started leaking onto Reddit and TikTok, the Sussex household went into full alert. Not publicly, of course. Outwardly, there was silence. No statements, no social media responses. But behind closed doors, it was anything but quiet. One insider, allegedly familiar with Archewell's internal operations, claimed Meghan was livid when the leaked joke first hit her radar. It wasn't just the mockery, it was the fact that the wine, the product she had poured months of branding effort into, was now being ridiculed through animation. That potted plant gag might have only lasted a few seconds in storyboard form, but the internet was turning it into a viral moment. Worse still, Meghan reportedly felt blindsided. She had been told the project had quiet buzz, that critics were just being cynical. But now, a primetime comedy titan had put the joke into pixels.
Complaining, I'm the only one that's ever had mental problems. Like, my life was so hard. Everybody's life is hard.
The ridicule had gone mainstream. The timing couldn't have been worse. Internally, Meghan had allegedly been preparing for the next phase of the As Ever rollout. More influencer kits, a lifestyle blog relaunch, even whispers of a wine and wellness retreat concept being floated around in pitch decks. But the second this Family Guy gag started circulating, all those conversations reportedly froze. Harry, on the other hand, was said to be quiet. According to a staff member who was not authorized to speak but allegedly overheard the morning meeting that followed the leak, he didn't defend the scene, but he didn't explode either. He allegedly looked down, shook his head, and muttered something like, "It's never going to stop, is it?" That silence, more than any outburst, said it all.
Queen summoned everyone to a private meeting. Everyone attended except Meghan Markle. I don't blame Meghan for not going, because nothing good happens when white people invite you to the countryside. We've all seen Get Out. We know how this shit ends.
Crisis PR teams were immediately consulted. One name that came up again and again was Sunshine Sachs. The firm had previously helped the couple navigate tough press storms, but they had reportedly parted ways months earlier. Still, multiple people close to the situation claimed frantic calls were made, to former advisors, to friendly outlets, to legal teams, anything to stop the spread. But how do you stop a joke that never aired? You can't issue takedowns on fan edits. You can't sue every meme account. You can't silence speculation when you've already lost control of the narrative. That's what made this moment feel different. Not because the scene was meaner than usual, but because the Sussexes no longer had the media gravity to bend the conversation back in their favor. And through it all, the only official reaction from Meghan and Harry was silence. But silence, when it's this loud, starts to sound like retreat. And as the leaked clips kept circulating, a bigger truth was starting to settle in.
I don't know how to break this, Stu. H. And if you weren't in the royal family, M wouldn't be with you.
It wasn't just a comedy bit, it was a referendum. And if Family Guy no longer feared mocking them this directly, then the question became, where do Meghan and Harry really stand in the cultural food chain? When Family Guy pulls a punch, it's rare. But when they aim and strike with full force, the impact is never just about laughs, it's about status. Because in Hollywood, the harshest jokes are never about the forgotten. They're aimed at those who once mattered. And for Meghan and Harry, that's the sting no PR team can spin away. What this scrap sketch revealed, more than the wine, more than the potted plant, more than Stewie's punchline, is a deeper truth, one that Hollywood insiders have been whispering for months, that Meghan and Harry are no longer untouchable, they're no longer hot, and worst of all, they might no longer be relevant. Once upon a time, mocking Meghan Markle came with risks. You could be accused of misogyny, racism, insensitivity. The media treated her like a walking headline generator. Each appearance sparked analysis. Each photo went viral. And Harry, always close by, was seen as her knight with a press release. But that sheen has faded, not suddenly, gradually, quietly, and it's been replaced by something colder, indifference. Take the timeline.
And you know what else? To hell with Canada! We are leaving! We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people! Come on, wife!
After the Oprah interview, there was global sympathy. It was raw, shocking, royal. Then came the Netflix docuseries, glossy, over-edited, less impact. Then archetypes, a few headlines, no lasting imprint. Then the jam, the wine, the influencers, and still, no heat. And now, a comedy giant like Family Guy doesn't just take aim. They allegedly script entire scenes, fully animated segments that aren't vague or subtle. They name the wine, they parody the tone, They draw Harry dumping a glass in disgust while Meghan beams. That's not satire aimed at power. That's satire aimed at people the industry thinks have become self-parody. This is what makes the moment so cutting. In earlier years, a sketch like this would have been unthinkable. Executives would have shut it down before a single line was written. Now, not only did it get scripted, it allegedly got voiced, animated, and lined up for broadcast. That's how far the pendulum has swung. And let's not forget the context. When royals get mocked, it usually comes in waves. Princess Diana was spoofed delicately, always with a touch of reverence. Sarah Ferguson got hit harder, but never with this level of venom. Prince Andrew was simply erased from late night entirely. His scandals were too severe, too radioactive. But Meghan and Harry, they're in a stranger place. They're visible, but only in satire. They're newsworthy, but only as punchlines. That is a unique kind of exile, not full cancellation, not scandal. Just slow-motion irrelevance masked as media presence, and Family Guy calling it out then pulling it is what made it land even harder. Because when the jokes get cut, the message gets louder. And somewhere in Montecito, Meghan and Harry may finally be asking the question no one around them wants to answer. If even the satirists are done pretending, what's left? The sketch was finished. That part is no longer in question. It had been storyboarded, voiced, colored, timed, and prepped. The final pass was ready for air, but the moment it hit the internal screener rounds at Fox, something shifted.
Meghan Markle is on the American program Suits.
Yes, Wednesdays, 8 p.m, USA Network. Check it out.
The only difference between that show and this is people watch this one.
Executives who had laughed at earlier drafts reportedly fell quiet. One anonymous insider called it a hard no from the legal floor. And just like that, the scene was buried. Publicly, nothing happened. No press release, no comment, no confirmation that the segment ever existed. But behind the scenes, the scramble to bury the sketch reportedly turned into something bigger. A network-level conversation about risk, image, and the fine line between satire and sabotage. And according to two sources who claim to have direct knowledge of that internal fallout, the Meghan and Harry wine gag was not the only Sussex-themed scene created this season. There are allegedly 2 more scenes featuring the cartoon couple that have not aired. Both are reportedly in the can, finished and archived, waiting on final green lights that may never come. The first reportedly plays on Meghan's lifestyle branding, a sketch that spoofs wellness influencers, where a cartoon Meghan opens a crystal-powered home retreat called Meghaning, with Harry trapped in a sound bath while podcast mics record their every breath.
We just want to be normal people. All this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines?
One source claims the line healing through hand-picked hashtags was floated during scripting. The second, even darker, allegedly involves Harry at a job interview trying to reclaim his royal allowance by applying for a barista job at a coffee chain called Monarch Bucks. A character resembling King Charles appears via FaceTime, sipping tea and muttering, "Have you tried being useful?" The segment reportedly drew gasps in the room, even during internal pitch meetings. None of it has aired. And here's why that matters. Fox is not scared of controversy. This is the network that let Family Guy tear into Tom Cruise, skewer Bruce Jenner, and turn entire musical numbers into insult parades.
He's like, Joe Rogan's giving out dangerous misinformation. And my first thought was, did I? I might have.
But this time, the worry wasn't just lawsuits, it was perception. Advertisers, executives, and industry power players are increasingly cautious about anything that smells like targeted bullying, especially toward a couple known for playing the victim. Even so, several people involved in the process believe the network wanted the sketch to leak. Not officially, of course, but quietly, strategically, because pulling it outright would kill the punchline, but leaking it, that drives curiosity, it drives views. It gives the network plausible deniability while still cashing in on the cultural moment. And if things spiral out of control, they can always say it was never meant to be seen. This is the tightrope Fox is walking now. Ride the wave of Meghan and Harry backlash without falling into the pit of media backlash. Roast the royals just enough to stay viral, but not enough to trigger legal hellfire. But with leaked clips already spreading and rumors swirling about what hasn't been shown, one question looms over everything. How long can they keep those scenes locked away? The moment the sketch was pulled, Fox likely thought it was over, quietly scrub the scene, remove it from the airing schedule, and move on. But that's not how the internet works. And when you try to suppress something that controversial, you don't kill it, you amplify it. What started as a few whispers on Reddit turned into a digital wildfire within days. Blurry screenshots of the animated Harry tipping wine into a plant, low-quality audio snippets allegedly ripped from a rough cut.
If it's truly what we want, then we really can get away from it all. No more magazines and Netflix shows. We really can live a normal life. Yes, I'm sure you agree, darling.
TikTok creators stitching together mock recreations, using AI voices to simulate the dialogue. Even fan animators jumped in. redrawing the entire scene from memory based on insider descriptions. It didn't matter that the actual footage never aired. The leak itself became the spectacle. One TikTok with a caption that read, "Even the plants need therapy," racked up over 3 million views in less than 48 hours. Twitter threads broke down each detail of the sketch, speculating about which jokes were cut, who gave the order, and what it said about the Sussexes' fading image. Reddit threads debated whether Meghan's PR team tried to suppress it. Some even claimed the leak was intentional, a strategy to test public reaction without committing to broadcast. And the reaction? It was brutal, but it was also loud.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
This wasn't just Meghan Markle getting roasted. It was the public unleashing months, maybe even years of pent-up ridicule. For many, the sketch became symbolic, a breaking point, a shared laugh at a narrative that had once been wrapped in seriousness and now felt out of touch. People weren't just laughing at the cartoon. They were laughing at the idea that Meghan thought she could still control the narrative. And then came the backlash to the backlash. Sympathetic media outlets began to step in, questioning whether the leak crossed a line. A few commentators argued that targeting Meghan, especially with jokes about her brand and marriage, felt personal. Others pointed out that parody had always been fair game, and that Family Guy had been far more savage with far more powerful people in the past. But in the noise, one thing became clear.
I'm here to tell my truth and make a shit ton of money out of podcasting, as I don't have any discernible talent.
The Streisand effect had kicked in. By trying to hide the scene, Fox may have accidentally made it legendary. Instead of airing for a few million viewers on a Sunday night and disappearing by Monday morning, the sketch became an underground sensation. Screenshots were shared across private Discord servers. Fans archived every version they could find. The moment became bigger than the show itself. And Meghan and Harry, they still said nothing. No denial, no legal threat, no acknowledgement at all, which only deepened the speculation. Were they caught off guard, or were they waiting, measuring the fallout, planning a quiet response, hoping the moment would pass? If so, they may have underestimated what this really was. Not just a cartoon jab, not just a leak, but a cultural checkpoint. And if the joke hit this hard without ever airing, what happens if the next one finally does?
Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I
I was totally like, you should write a book because your family like stupid and then so are like journalists.
At this point, it no longer matters whether the full scene ever airs. In a way, it already has, just not on television. It played out online, across millions of phones and screens, stitched together from memory, leaks, and satire, and somehow that made it more powerful. The joke didn't need a network, the audience carried it, and now everyone's asking the same question: what comes next? Inside Family Guy's vault, the rumors still swirl. There are more Sussex sketches finished and shelved. Writers reportedly still want them out, but executives are skittish. Advertisers are watching closely, and Meghan and Harry, according to insiders, they're weighing their next moves with careful silence. But here's the thing.
How do you stay at the top of the middle of your game?
Well, Pads, an early start's important, so my butler Perkins gets up at 5 a.m. and does a 10K for me.
Even if the jokes stay buried, the cultural shift is already done. This wasn't just about one cartoon, it was about momentum. And for Meghan and Harry, that momentum has flipped. They were once the couple who broke tradition, who challenged the monarchy, who rebranded themselves as modern royalty. But now the perception is slipping, not because of scandal, not because of policy, but because the emotional connection is gone. People don't relate to them anymore. They don't root for them. They don't buy what they're selling. And when public affection turns into apathy, or worse, comedy, that's when you know you've lost the room. That's why the cartoon hit so hard. It didn't invent a new narrative. It simply revealed one already forming.
What about television? Do you have a Netflix account?
Yeah, it's got about $9 million in it.
Meghan pushing a product with forced optimism. Harry going along for the ride, eyes tired, soul a little dimmed. That potted plant wasn't just a gag, it was a metaphor, something fake being quietly rejected. And what about the silence? That's its own statement. The Sussexes have built their image on speaking out, on setting the record straight, on having the last word. But now, with a scene like this spreading across the internet, their refusal to respond feels less like control and more like defeat.
Harry and Meghan are losing their titles? That's the most embarrassing royal loss since William's hairline. And I won't lie, if I was Harry and Meghan, I'll be like, fine, then we'll be known as Royale.
And that opens the door to a darker possibility. What if this wasn't just a misstep? What if this is the beginning of a broader fade? In Hollywood, the worst fate is not being hated, it's being ignored. Once the jokes stop landing and no one cares enough to fight back, the spotlight dims for good.
Can you imagine being his boss when he screws up? Like, what do you call him in and say? Prince Harry, get in here, your majesty! You blew the Henderson account, my lord!
And for a couple who spent years commanding headlines, that's the real danger. Not a cartoon, not a sketch, obscurity. That's why this moment matters. Not because it was savage, not because it was funny, but because it said the quiet part out loud.
What are you suggesting?
Well, I just think some people might say that your Instagram-loving
rich wife actually doesn't want her privacy.
The brand is slipping, the audience is shifting, and the silence from Montecito speaks volumes.
I'm so busy and happy. I'm glad we didn't make it, Harry. I don't want to be a duchess and live in a huge house for free.
Now the only question left is this: do Meghan and Harry still believe they're in on the joke? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned, the next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.